Am I at church or the movies? Hey everybody, this is Tiffany, aka Old School Heart. If you are watching this on YouTube, this is episode 5 of Sitting in Yo Pew, a church review. I want to say thank you to everybody who watched episode 4, where I went to Pillar of Love, where the pastor is none other than Bishop Phyllis. This is an LGBTQ inclusive church, and I enjoyed myself. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch that episode, go ahead and do so. I still want to have a discussion about this episode. I know it's very sensitive. It's still very, very taboo in the church, but I want us to create a dialogue and begin to talk to each other so that we can bridge the gap and try to gain some understanding. If not understanding, and at least respect for each other's opinions on this subject. So, like I said, if you have not watched it yet, go ahead and do so. Now, for this episode, I went on to Indiana. Now, I did not go far in Indiana at all. I went to Muncie, Indiana, and I went to the church Family Christian Center, where the pastor is Steve Munsey, and he co-pastors with his wife, Melodye Munsey. The church's address is 340 West 45th Street in Muncie, Indiana. Now, they have 4 services to choose from. They have one at Saturday at 5:30 p.m. And then their Sunday services are 8:30, 10:30, and 12:30. Now, if you know me, you already know not getting up that early. So I went to the 12:30 service. Now, if you have not watched any of these episodes before, then I will leave a link to how I critique or review these churches, and I'll leave it here. Now, just a disclaimer, there have been a lot of messages informing me that if I had went to more services, or I don't know the church very much, so how could I critique it? I just want to remind you guys that I critique it based on being a first time visitor. I'm pretty sure that if I attended the church longer, that I would have another perspective. But once again, this is me going as a first time visitor, okay? I picked this church because years ago, almost about 20 years ago, my church started to go to what is called the Passion Play. And basically that is the play that they put on for Easter or Resurrection Sunday. Now, what's so different about this church is that they include animals in their production. And when I say production, I mean that it is very well produced, very well written, very well directed, and very well acted. Probably one of the best plays that I've seen out of a church ever. And I really mean ever, because we know how some of them church plays are, right? So that is what I remember the church for. Now, I've never been to a service, clearly, because like I said, I like to be the first time visitor as I do reviews. So, but I have been for their Passion Play a good 4 or 5 times, but it's been a long time. I believe it's been almost 20 years since I have been to one. But I think that is how their church began to grow, because their productions, not just the Passion Play, but their Christmas production, and they do one more production that I'm not familiar with, but these productions are very, very well done. And I think that is how their church went from being very small when I went for their Passion Play, because they were in another building, to having another building built, which is really huge now, and them growing exponentially over the last 20 years. And so I had never been to a service, and so I said, now that everybody is talking about, they go there, my mother goes there, my sister goes there, I know a couple of friends that go there, it was time for me to see for myself what the big talk was. Number one, the welcome. Now, when I first got there, I actually got there 12 minutes ahead of time because the church is not too far from where I am. And so they actually have like a parking lot team that assists people into driving into the parking lot and getting a parking space. That was no problem. I got in there very quickly. And they have every door open, side doors, back doors, all of that. And so I actually couldn't figure out how to get to the front part of the church. So I parked near the side, and there was literally a welcome person there greeting you and saying, welcome to Family Christian Center. And they had a little bit of work going on, I guess, with the floor, but it was still really easy to walk through. Since I did have time to walk through the church and just look around, I did notice that they have a bookstore as well as a Starbucks like coffee house, and there were people in line buying coffee, donuts, little snacks and to take into the church with them. I did go into the bookstore and check out some of their books. It seems like Steve Munsey has wrote a lot, so his books were in there, as well as books from Joel Osteen, hate him or love him, Joel Osteen, and a couple of other authors, but mostly Steve Munsey books. Which is no problem. This is where he pastors, so you sell your books there. But I like to see a variety of books and a lot of perspectives in Christianity. And so I would have liked to see more, but it is what it is. So I was handed different programs, an envelope, and I decided to sit in the middle so that I get a very clear view of the service. Now, their worship, my God, their worship started exactly on time. When 12:30 hit, those people were yelling and screaming. The worship team was yelling and screaming and getting people pumped up, and they started worship just like that. They did not have praise dancers, which like I've told you before, if there's praise dancers and a whole bunch going on, I'm looking around. Now, they do have a lot of lights, a lot of background things on their screen as the worship is going up. And I did take a look at that. They have very good lighting. Like I said, it's like being at a production. They have really good lighting, really good focus on the singers. They sung 4 or 5, I think they sung 4 songs that day. The singing was very beautiful. And what I loved about their worship team, what I really, really loved about their worship team is that it was not just one race. It was African American, it was Hispanic, it was white, it was everything. And so it was great to see a number of people worshiping and excited about worshiping, and not really worried about if anybody else is doing it. And I love that. I love when you can turn your focus to God, even if you are a part of the worship team. And so I enjoyed worship. I enjoy worshiping with this church. And I felt very, very comfortable. What was really different about this service was their announcements were like movie productions. It was like watching, at the beginning of a movie when they show the movies that'll be coming out in theaters soon. That's how his announcements were. It just was like a flash to this, and you're like, "Ooh, I gotta go to this." Like that's what I felt like. Like he has Wednesday night Bible study, and so that there was a mini clip of that, and then he has the Day of Atonement that's coming up, and there was a clip of that, and then there was Women's Day, and there was a clip of that, and so it was literally like being at the movies. Like everything was like very well produced, very well done, and kept you engaged and informed. Now, part 3, which is the message. Pastor Steve Munsey came from Acts 27:20-24, and his title was Courage. And basically he just talked about how we need to be of good courage, how the joy of the Lord is our strength, and we need to make sure that we really have joy in our life, because having joy in our life will give us strength and help us to not be so entangled in fear, not being so entangled in not being able to do the things in which God has asked us to do and the things that will move us and push us forward. And so he just talked about how Paul just prayed and just never had fear, and knew that God would be there with him, and that God would see you through any storm in particular that you're going to. It was a much needed message for me and the people in his congregation. And I know that we all can relate to just having a lot of fear and not relying on God as much as we should. And so, of course, Pastor Steve Munsey is very biblically accurate. He knows his Bible very well. He's been doing ministry for over, I believe, 35 years, if not even more than that. Now, number 4 is community outreach. And when I say it's a lot of stuff, it is a lot of stuff. Now, the one thing that I do love about Family Christian Center is that they do have a lot of community outreach. They actually were giving a tithes for the victims of Hurricane Harvey, and they actually had a table set outside of the auditorium where you can put bottles of water and different things that you can give in order to send to Texas for those victims of Hurricane Harvey. He also took an offering so that they're able to pay the driver, pay for the truck, pay for the gas, as well as other things in order to get all those supplies to Hurricane Harvey. And so that is one thing that he is doing, and that's not even his community, but we all need to be giving what we can to those hurricane victims. And we still have a lot more to go, since we are dealing with Hurricane Irma right now, and another one on now. On to my critique of the church. What I loved about this church is that there is not one race represented in their church. There are a number of cultures represented in their church. You had African, you had African American, you had Latino, you had Asian, and you had white, all there worshiping God together. And that is what God's church should look like. In spite of all of the racial tension and issues that we have, church should still be the one place where all cultures are represented. And so I love that Family Christian Center is doing a very good job at having different cultures at their church. The one thing that I saw that was just so amazing to me is when I sat down before the service started, there was a Hispanic lady speaking to a Hispanic couple that was new to the church. And she was asking the lady what language she spoke. Did she speak Spanish or English? And she was letting the lady know, well, if you don't speak English, then you have to just pick up these headsets and the whole service will be translated in Spanish for you. And I just thought that was so cool. That is so amazing. Anytime that you can accommodate a particular culture, it's amazing. What I also love is all of the groups that they have throughout the week that a member or a new person can attend. They have stuff for the family. They have stuff for marriages. They have workshops if you want to get more into your Bible. There were 3 or 4 different Bible study groups that you could attend on top of the Wednesday night service that Steve Munsey does as well. They have different life development groups that I already talked about, like learning how to do the stock market, weight loss, financial workshops. If you want to become a member of the church, there are a number of series of courses that you must take in order to do so. So getting involved in this church is something that they really want you to do and really work hard for you to do. There's something that you can attend throughout the week at all times. They even have a cancer care ministry. And that one just touched my heart, because we know how cancer is. We know that you need to be around people of a similar faith and be around people that understand what you're going through, even if you are just a family member. That part right there just touched my heart. They have a men's group. They have a language group. And so you can attend anything throughout the week in this church, which is really cool. And I think that's how church should be. Especially when you have 4 different services, you're going to see a lot of people going in and out. So it's very, very important that you have things throughout the week so that your members know each other, and so that you get to know the church, you get to know the people. I think that that's very important if you're going to have a big church like Family Christian Center, is to have very good biblical teaching and very good fellowship amongst each other. I hate that word fellowship. That's such a churchy word, but fellowship with each other. Now, if I have to give a con for this church, and I will, and I am going to, my con would be, I have a hard time with churches who actually use a lot of gimmicks in order to get people to go to their church. What I mean by that is, what was really hard for me is the worship portion of the service, and even the announcements of the service. Although very engaging and very eye-catching for me, the one thing that I worry about is, to what limit or to what extent do we have to get people engaged in church and get hold people's attention in church? For me, even though it may be people who volunteer for this position, what I am afraid of is that can be what's holding them, instead of instead of the Christian discipline. And when I mean discipline, I mean reading your word, I mean praying, I mean getting people to know who Jesus is. I think that that's way more important than the lighting for the actual worship service and the background images during the worship service, and the production that it takes for the next sermon. When I was talking about the announcements in particular, just the time and effort it takes to do that, I think that should go to community outreach, and also to getting people to know who Jesus is. And that's me personally. I just think that our mind should be fixed on that more so than on all the gimmicks and gadgets and stuff like that. And I understand we are in a technology world, we're in a social media world, we're trying to keep up with everything and everybody, but I just feel like our attention should be there a lot more than anything else. And let me know what you feel about how the church is evolving, what the church is using in order to catch people, if that's needed in churches, or if we are taking our focus off of God and on to something else, or if I'm just a complete lunatic and you don't necessarily agree. But that's the one con that I do have. And once again, the church that I went to was Family Christian Center, where the pastor is Steve Munsey, along with his wife, Melodye Munsey. The church is located at 340 West 45th Street in Muncie, Indiana. I will leave the website for you guys to take a look at their website. Services are Saturday at 5:30 and also Sundays 8:30, 10:30, and 12:30. So this is episode 5 of Sitting in Yo Pew, a church review. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this on all social media sites if you can. The more shares, the more views, the more people will be interested in what I am doing. Also, if you have any churches that you would like for me to attend, please leave me a message below, or direct message me, and I will take a look at that church and see what I can do. I am looking for more Pentecostal type churches to go to. I don't have many on my list, so if you know of any, it would be great if you could send me some. Also, Church of God in Christ as well. Just send me a message. If there's anything that I am not covering on these reviews that you want me to cover, please leave me a message below as well. Also, if you are my Facebook friend, or if you're not, please add me. But if you are my Facebook friend, on Thursdays at 7 p.m., I have started a Facebook Live with my friend Corey. It's called Who's Gospel, and we discuss Christian issues and topics. And we like to have discussions with other people and make it very interactive. So if you're not doing anything and you're already scrolling through Facebook, please join us on Thursdays at 7 p.m. You don't want to miss it. We have some great topics coming up. This is Old School Heart. Please share this video once again. Have a good night.